Welcome to the Honest Property Podcast with your hosts, Rebecca and Ruth. And today we have Leah. So she's from Get Comfy with Money. And we actually met her for the first time when we went to a Girls and Property event. And we thought we're just blown away when we met her. We just thought she's got a lot to say, especially the importance when you're starting a business as an entrepreneur or in the investing space, the importance of knowing how to manage your money and like feel comfortable even just talking about it. So welcome, Leah, to the
Thanks for being.
podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So how did it all start for you,
Yeah.
wanting to share this knowledge with people and kind of support their perspective of being having a positive association with money and what it can do for them?
Yes, I love that. What a great question to start. I can tell you my whole life history. I guess that's the point, is that money is so ingrained into our whole lives from when we're born all the way through to when we die. There's different stages that we need to think about money in different ways, from pocket money to our relationship with money to seeing adults and others around us when we were younger and their relationship with money. So I guess my own experiences started for myself when I started my life. And so over time, they've evolved and they've grown and they've changed and they've been reshaped time and time again. Some key pivotal moments for me when I was in my early 20s, very early 20s, I decided I wanted to start my own business. And so I read that Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week book.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's going to be me. This is my new life, my new path. And I ended up deciding to create a business that was a physical product. So it was actually selling super random, round and square yoga mats. So I got them designed and created in China. Ordered a huge amount. It was about 1,000 of them. And that put me in my first experience with debt. So I took on a personal loan so that I could take those out. And then I found a massive disconnect between my passion for what I was selling, because I love yoga, but I didn't have any interest really in working in the fitness industry and selling a product like that. And so I had to overcome a really big amount of debt, which built up to about £30,000. And I was like, what do I do? I have no knowledge. I have no education in this field. I've got this debt now. What do I do? And I was so shameful. I didn't want to talk about it with anybody. And there was a key moment where I was in so much. I was like really in over my head. And I thought, what do I do? And I just had a chat with my mum to start with. And slowly but surely, I started to develop this idea of understanding how important it was to get more articulate and more comfortable with money. And it started with conversations and then grew from there. So I went, all right, I've got this debt. What do I do with it? How do I get myself out of it? And I still had this entrepreneurial spirit. So I didn't want to just go, I tried that and it didn't work. Next, try and get a job again. I just never really fit the mold of a normal 9 to 5. And not to say I didn't try. I've had many jobs in many different fields, from investment banking all the way through to being SpongeBob SquarePants at a theme park. So I've done a lot of things in my time. But my relationship with money, I just noticed throughout, was something that constantly came up. And to this day, even, it never stops. And so the name Get Comfy with Money, which is the name of my business, kind of just came naturally when I was setting myself up, and I went, what am I trying to help people do? I want them to get comfortable with money. And then that kind of just stuck. And since then,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very catchy. Yeah.
It's something everyone resonates with, like, because it's like a paradox, kind of.
Yeah, exactly that. And also I think it's also to acknowledge that I don't think anyone would ever be completely comfortable with it. So what comfortable means changes at different times in your life too. So I'm on my own Get Comfy with Money journey, and I've been in many different variations and versions of that through my life. And as I found those experiences challenging, I was like, I can't be the only one. So the more I spoke about it and started to kind of vocalize this and find conversations with people who I knew and then people I didn't know, I started to see, actually, I'm not the only one that feels this way. And it's widespread for sure. But there's something in particular about talking about it with women and that I absolutely love, because I feel it's a conversation and a dialogue that hasn't been present for a long time, and it's becoming more and more apparent. So yeah, a little bit of background on where it all came from.
That's awesome. I think it's so, like, it's such it's such a blindingly obvious problem. And you just like labeled it for what it is. Kind of, I think it's just so good that you're bringing it to the forefront, because it is something that needs to be addressed, especially, as you say, for women. Now that we're even able to have bank accounts, like, since not that long ago, there's so much more to unpack psychologically as well, with how we're supposed to feel about it and our responsibilities with it. Like, what can we do with it? Are we deserving of it?
But you said you read that book, Money Blueprints.
The Money Blueprint was like a concept within the book, but it's just I think this is what drew me to you as well, because you were just so open about talking about this particular. You can learn how to make money. You can get all the skills of like getting a good job or learning how to invest, but you could so easily just lose it all if you wanted, if your attitude towards money is like you've got a weird blueprint about it, about your deservingness, and you kind of subliminally do things to jeopardize your own success if you don't understand how you feel about like your own internal programming about money.
And then is that something that you help your clients to be able to unpick with their relationship in like how deserving they feel to be able to hold on to the money that they earn?
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's been interesting in my journey of exploring this as a subject with all the people I've worked with is how much finance is connected to worth, but how actually our self-worth is not dependent on money at all, but we do wrap the two into each other. So your self-worth does not change through your life. You are worthy whether you have something or don't, no matter how skilled you are, how old you are, what your background, your experiences are. Your worth actually doesn't change. If you get more money, you don't become more worthy. But we have this conception within ourselves that that's the case. What can waver and change is your confidence. So as you don't have skills in something, you might feel less confident in it. I think it's quite normal for our confidence levels in ourselves to go up and down. And I think often we mix the two. So we say, oh, well, I'm not worthy, I can't charge that. When actually it might be about confidence, it might be about your skill level, or it might just be simply the industry you're in, what's kind of standard rates. So there's so many kind of dialogues going on behind the scenes, as you say, about like what your blueprint is, or what the stories, I call them the stories you tell about money. So your money story and how it's built you to where you are. So as an example, my debt has come a lot from my childhood. My dad is a massive giving, generous person, and he would give to everybody who was
Sounds
around.
like our dad.
And my mum was quite conservative. She came from a family that was quite tight with their money. So I saw their clashes constantly, because my dad would be like, give everything to everyone. And my mum would be like, no, serve us first.
Yeah.
Make sure we're okay first. So I think I took pieces from both of them. But with that, both of them were hippies, and they rebelled from their religious parents, and then so they've kind of got this outlook of it's all about happiness. So my own perception on money was that money's bad or evil, or you shouldn't try and get it, because people who have lots of money are selfish, and there's so many
like capitalism, and like
yeah,
that all capitalism is all terrible, but that's not always the case. It can actually provide a lot. By having money, you can give so much more back as well. It's how you use it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we need to figure out what's our truth, what's somebody else's truth, what's society's truth, and what rules or story we want to live by.
You know what's interesting actually with this? I read an article that was because a lot of the time it was the man was the breadwinner for a long time, and their what did you just say? It was like their value was linked to how they provided for the family, and that's why when they get to a certain age, when they get older and the kids grow up and they leave home, that they no longer are providing for that, like they're not needed, so they've lost their purpose providing to the family unit in that way. But you see a lot of I guess it's like having difficulty with retiring, because that being the breadwinner was like the sole purpose of the family, and you see it's like trying to navigate that as well, and especially with women as well coming into the workforce, and it's very complex. But I was just reading something about that, and I was like, oh, what you just said makes a lot of sense, because your purpose is so linked, especially for men, which is a completely different conversation, but it's so linked, and it was linked for so long, ingrained in society, that they were the breadwinner. And there's a lot of like depression later on in life. We're trying to see that there is more to life than just being the breadwinner.
Yeah.
So to go off on a different, I guess the same direction, but that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, it works both ways for sure. It's not exclusive to just men how worth plays in, but I think that's a really perfect example of how, sometimes we can see our worth or self-worth as our financial worth as one, but really they are two separate things, which in itself could be a big challenge. I know your audience are business owners, small business owners, and so that constant weighing up, like, what should I be charging? What will people pay? So that comes into play a lot, and that can often take effect on our worth, because we say, oh, am I worthy? Have I got enough certifications or qualifications, like, to be able to justify what I'm asking someone?
Yeah.
Based on your experience of that big learning curve you had when you invested 30K into your yoga mat business, which I still think is a really good idea. I wish there was more room around my mat. I keep rolling off of it. I think as a business owner, or especially as a property investor, there is a comfort you have to have with having debt as well. And I think especially when you're starting out, like it sounds like from your experience, like debt, for most people at least, is a dirty word or a bad word. But what Ruth and I try and instill in people who are learning how to invest in property with our beginner's roadmap, we say right at the beginning, there is a difference between good debt and bad debt. So how with the people that you help, how do you navigate that with them?
I love that question. So So to start with, like, when we're talking about finance, and I find it really interesting because people come and they'll say, I'm bad with money, or I need to get better with money, or I need to make more money, or my relationship with money is bad. So you don't necessarily always know what it is. You just know the concept of money feels really bad. So first of all, it's actually like breaking it down to understand what areas of finance are the struggles. So debt is one of them. So I call it like 5 different areas of your finance flow. So debt is number one, like kind of the foundational one. Then there's spending, saving, income, and investing. So we kind of build this little layers up on this cupcake. So our debt I see and I explain as kind of like the bottom of your bucket. And if there are holes in the bucket and there are leaks there, it can feel like you can put in as much as you want, but it will continually come out. So I don't feel negative about debt anymore because of my experience with it. And I know a lot of people have intimidation feelings or they're scared of it. So some people are not in debt because they don't want to go anywhere near it because they're terrified of it. Other people are in it and feel dread or overwhelm or shame around it. And then there's those who maybe have learned how to use debt to their advantage and understand, as you say, the difference between good and bad debt. So for me, it's often understanding the feelings around it, like what's either stopping you having it or making you feel bad for having it. I definitely had a lot of guilt and shame about my own debt because my mum's side of the family were very much about live within your means, don't go into debt. So, and it was no fault to my mum. She's a
It makes
loving,
logical
wonderful.
sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like you're like, like there's where's the
absolutely. But she'd be like, oh, debt. That's really scary. So then I was like, oh my God, I've fucked up. I'm in debt. I've done the thing that is the worst thing to do. Then over time, I've like, for me, all it is, it's like your zero, like you've got your ground zero. So your debt is when you're below ground zero. But if you understand your debt and you learn how to come back up to your zero, you can make money. It's the same process, whether you're below or above that line. And having good debt is about seeing the return on investment or recognizing that it's something within your means to be able to pay and hold and afford. Whereas your bad debts may be things that are not going to be viable in the future or show you some kind of return or are not able for you to keep on top of. So coming back to that bucket analogy, if you have the debts and there's just consistent dripping through and you're ignoring it and you're leaving it, it doesn't mean you have to finish paying off your debt before you can do anything else. It just means you need to understand it, work with it, know how to manage it, and know how to pay off what you need to pay off. So it's part of your financial ecosystem.
That's true, because I think you can get like using debt to be able to advance your career, like, or say, you needed to buy a company car, or I think, in that sort of situation, it can be quite easy to go, oh, I need to pay this off really quickly. But actually, there's also needing to make sure that your business, you have enough reserves for the business as well. It's not just trying to pay off all the debt in one go, otherwise you're not left with anything. And then you stay in this state of survival.
Yeah.
And I think we see this a lot with other business owners and entrepreneurs that feel, maybe that's because of like the money blueprint as well, where because you are working for yourself. A lot of these people are solopreneurs, freelancers who are just trying to make sure they are getting that next client to be able to manage all of the outgoings to run their business. And it can be quite scary when you've got debt to that. But even if the debt is actually supposed to be helping your business grow.
Totally. And I think there's another aspect in this, which is when you're a solopreneur, freelancer, even a small business owner with a limited company, you have this cross section between your personal and your business finances, which is constantly kind of you're oscillating between. So
it can get confusing.
It can. And so often I hear people feeling guilty about debt on a personal level, and then there's a reframe where you're like, well, no, this is business debt. This isn't for an investment. And then that can take that weight off of, that's true, this isn't personal debt, this is something to do with my business, and vice versa.
Yeah, we've experienced that in the past.
So when people start, so you support people working through their business. So what are the top sort of issues that people have with, what is their top discomfort, I suppose, with money that you're firstly finding when you're working with people?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to my head is pricing. Yeah, coming back to
Mhm.
that idea of figuring out that piece of what your value is versus what the industry says you should be charging versus what the clients that you want to work with want. So I call it your pricing sweet spot, because there is so much involved in that equation. It's not just as simple as I charge this. You have to figure out the back end, so what you need personally. So talking about like your personal survival budget, how much you need to be able to thrive or survive. Then you need to think of your business expenses and costs and any overheads for, if it's a product business, like any production costs or material costs. If you're service related, your time, any of learning, all that type of thing. So there's so many factors on the expenses side. And then there's I call it the difference between your needs and your wants. So your needs, like what's your base to cover everything, and then what do you actually want to make to cover the life you actually want to have. So all those bits on top. So it's not just about, oh, I want to become a millionaire or I want to make this. It's like, well, actually, let's get into the detail of what that looks like, what your needs and your wants actually are. And then you can start to calculate what that then looks like if you base it on how much time off you want in the year. Because often when we work for ourselves, we don't think about holiday time.
No, you don't. Guilty. We were ball and chain because we enjoyed so much what we did. It was so hard to strip yourself away and acknowledge that
You need a break.
you need a break. But it's very hard when I can see when people don't enjoy what they do. It's easy to take that break, but we really love what we do. That it's hard sometimes to give yourself permission to go, you need to recuperate.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't always see that as part of the work. So it's just framing our downtime as part of our work time. Yeah, so factoring in holidays, things like how many days a week do you actually want to work? How many hours are you doing the work that brings money versus working on the business, like doing the admin?
Do you help people be able to make a plan of like, okay, you go, okay, we're going to put these holidays into this plan to make sure that you actually do this so that you can be really productive in what you've chosen to do as a career?
Totally, yeah. So one aspect, I call it flow. So finding your flow. I don't really like the word balance, like work-life balance, because it's never
Doesn't exist.
balance. It's more about how you want to flow through. So like last year I experimented and I took the 4 quarters of the year, and I had 10 weeks working, 2 weeks off. So that was like my pattern, and I tried that, and it was good. It was because I knew by week 10 I start to like get that kind of, oh, I'm running on empty, I'm going to need to recuperate. And then, so that was the year before last. And then this year, I've been focusing more on working remotely and holidaying. So I've been like playing with that. And now
I love that. How do you find it?
Yeah, it's to be honest, challenging. It's been like a dream of mine for years to
Yeah.
like take my laptop and go somewhere else, and I found it challenging going to places that were new, because you need to think of things like good internet and making sure you feel safe and secure in the space, or if there are other people around, like what that's like for having meetings, that type of thing. But once we planned it, I went with my partner. It was great. We actually were more focused and productive. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
for me,
Do
I'm
you
Yeah.
think it's
when
more
I
like
change.
you're like, I have plans to do today that are gonna be so fun. I need to get this done because I know I've got a
Yeah.
prize at the end of the day, at
Totally.
the end of the working day.
Totally. And we would start early. We'd wake up and we were starting work by like 7 in the morning. And then we'd finish at about 2, sometimes earlier for me. And then we're like, cool, we got the whole day. Now we can do other things.
I feel like as well with certain jobs, it can be like the work can be lulled out so much. Whereas in like Becky and I, well, we work together, we have very efficient working. We try and work as efficiently as possible so that we get to finish work and do what we want. I think so. It's like the working smarter, not longer.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you run out, you burn out, you run out of energy, and then you're no longer actually productive. You're just working for the sake of working, when, like you said, being able to plan into your diary to be able to recuperate and then come back better, I think, yeah, it just needs to be said more, especially for
Yeah.
like a business owner, that it's okay.
Exactly. And it's planning it into your diary, but it's also planning it into your pricing. And I think that's the tip that you
Yeah.
get, is your working time on needs to include your working time off, because you work for yourself. You don't have sick pay. You don't have holidays. So the
That's
time
so
you're on
true.
needs to include that. So you have those buffers so you can take time off without feeling guilty or worrying you're not making money.
It's like you're
Yeah.
teaching people how not to be their own worst boss. So my boss won't let me. Aren't you your own boss?
Yeah. No, I actually schedule meeting with the boss in every morning. I have an hour and it says meeting with the boss, and it's my time for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's like, what would you rate if you were actually employed by somebody?
Mm.
I'm sure you'd have so many like disagreements and things you'd want to say to their face. So why would you do it? Like, if they were making you do things you didn't want to do, so why would you do it to yourself?
Exactly. That's a really good point. Really good reframe. If your friend was having those problems with their boss at work, you'd be having a go at them. You'd be like, you need to talk up.
Yeah.
Talk to HR. What are you doing?
Yeah. Just you have to wear all those hats for yourself, though,
Yeah.
and then talk to yourself like you're HR again. It's just so many faces we have to wear. I have a question. So regarding time off, I don't know if you've had experience in this, but what about people who have to go maternity or paternity leave?
Yeah, that's a good
How do
point.
you balance that? Because that's obviously quite.
This was a difficult thing that for us to navigate when I had a kid. I felt like I've said this before in another podcast, that I felt like I was cheating on our business because it was our first baby. So would you help other women who are navigating that journey as well, on like how, because I went to back to work way too soon after I had a kid,
Yeah. Without
which
a need.
mentally was not okay. But how have you helped other women to be able to navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a client this year actually. She had a baby in March, and she wanted to work with me just before she went into her maternity period for that reason, to organize her finances and just get a bit of structure, because she felt when she was ready to come back, she said, if I don't do it now, this will just kind of be pushed way to the bottom of the priority list. So I guess with planning for your maternity, you get that teeny tiny bit of government support if you're lucky, if your business structure allows for it. So that's one part. Whether you're self-employed or a limited company, there may be different options. I know navigating it myself in my own relationship, I'm in a same-sex relationship, which adds a whole different aspect.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah, and we're like, well, who should be the primary caretaker? Who is the one? And my partner has a stable, she has a salaried position. So we're like, there's like, it's a whole different can of worms. So we're also navigating.
Do parental, shared leave as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many things. So I think part of it is research and understanding like who can hold what when. I've not been a mother myself, so I can't talk about how quickly you want to get back into work, and how I'm sure that also changes. Like you have a plan and an idea of what you think, and then the baby comes and everything is different. Either one way of, no, I want to be home more, or less. You're like, no, I'm done. I need to get back into the workplace.
Swap.
Exactly. So I guess there's only so much planning you can do to an extent. So from the financial side, for me, it's like any other goal that you need to set, which could include like having a freedom fund, I call it, or an emergency savings account. Freedom fund sounds more fun to me. But building that in, so going, all right, I want to have X amount of time off, most likely. What's going to be possible? We need to do a budget. You need to do a baby budget, basically, and figure out what your expenses you foresee they're going to be, and build that buffer in. And you probably have to spend a bit of time, especially if you're not earning as much as you want in the lead up to it. You probably have to sacrifice some of the things that you love to be able to have what you need during that period, or earn more money, or ways to have some income streams, some passive sources of income. Investment in property, I imagine, is a brilliant one, like having some income that's happening without you needing to be actually working.
Yeah, that's why we see mothers. We just think that people who want to be parents, investing in property especially allows more flexibility to be able to be back with your kids.
Yes.
Instead of having to rely so much on the government to be able to support you. So yeah, I think that's why we invest in property anyway.
Yeah, that freedom fund, I think it's freedom of time as well. Definitely having recurring income is such a like it really can help as you are transitioning through the different stages of life.
Yeah,
give you that time back
and that buffer,
or that buffer to be able to live on. It sounds so cheesy, but like live on your terms, but just choose how you want to, what energy you want to have at different stages, and just gives you that that grace to be it.
Yeah, and if you are fortunate enough to have a partner, because not everybody does, I heard a good thing about that is to learn in the lead up to having a baby, learn to live off one income. So
yeah, you know what? Yeah,
that is okay. I'm gonna be a little bit honest. I mean, this is an honest property podcast, so it just made me remember that I recently had a bit of a financial money block personally, and that was because I was so used to being financially independent that when my partner would offer to pay a substantial amount for something, and my mind was like,
yeah, I can do that.
It made me really question my value. And it was just a really interesting experience. Like, I actually broke down in tears. I was like, it made me feel rubbish. And I was like, why would I not be okay with my partner?
Yeah, because that's you chose, you're a team. But I also had this when I was deciding to have a baby, and because Becky and I, we've been brought up maybe from the role models that we had. It was very masculine. We were very independent. We didn't rely on anyone. But then you do pick a partner so that hopefully that you're a team player. But when I wanted to get pregnant, I, in all honesty, didn't want to rely at all on my husband.
Yeah.
But we needed to make sure that we could find staff to be able, so I had to give up part of my wage to make sure that we were paying someone else while I wasn't present.
Yeah.
But that was very hard for me to let go of that and be reliant for financially on my partner to pick up where I couldn't earn. And I don't think that's talked about enough. It's very hard, especially as a woman in business, to feel like you have permission to have children at the same time
and have support.
have support and know how to financially navigate or plan that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine, like, from your first-hand experience and hearing some of that anguish. And I have clients and I have friends who have explored these different themes themselves. And one of my really good clients was like one of my oldest clients, I should say, was the sole breadwinner up till they decided to have children. And then
Oh God, I cannot even imagine this. Her brain.
and then exactly the tables turned, and so her husband got a job. He actually ran a business, or started to run a business, and it was super successful. And so that was then what was going to happen. And then they went on this journey to try and have kids, and they couldn't have kids. So there was this in between bit of identity crisis where she was like, I'm not earning, I'm relying on my partner for everything, and I'm not doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing. That's the reason why I'm earning.
I can't even imagine.
So I guess again, this all comes back to worth, though, doesn't it? This idea of
but that's what I realized from what you just said. It's the worth thing.
I feel worthy of someone paying for me.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
But it's also not paying for you. It's holding up their end of the bargain. And I think that's the piece, isn't it?
I was very happy, like, for my whole relationship with my obviously husband now, but I was very happy to be the one that would spend money on him, be like, no, I've got it. It's absolutely fine. I'll take us on holiday. I earned more money. It was fine. And then to then go through navigating having a kid, that was like a whole mental money block.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Was very difficult to let go of.
Yeah, wow.
So
and then how did you overcome it? I'm curious. How do you
Cried a lot. Also, planning. Just planning and going, it's not forever. Embrace it. I knew I always wanted to be a mother. And just letting go. It's like shedding your old, I guess, ego self. It was egotistical for me to think that I could be a breadwinner and allow someone else to take care of me. And I think it's really hard, especially as a woman, when a lot of the narrative is pushed to be so successful that we are driving in our masculine state all the time instead of being okay with like being in touch with our feminine, slowing down, especially if you want to have kids and you're running a business, you have to slow down. And that's been a whole journey for us in itself. To be like, it's okay to be, it's just like allowed to soften.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, I love how you put that.
On the topic of partners, do you delve into sort of partner, like how do partners get comfy with money together?
Do you work with partners?
What does that look like?
Yeah, I've worked with partners. It's funny, actually, on a personal story. I worked with my partner before she was my partner. So she needed some support on we kind of knew each other a little bit, and then she became a client, and I was helping her because she wanted to buy a house, was her goal. So we've developed an amazing relationship ourselves around finances. Like, we have finance date nights and check-ins. Like, we try and set like a yearly,
smart.
Yeah, we do like a yearly overview of, all right, let's talk about our holidays for next year, what our goals are, like personal goals, business goals, relationship goals, and how that all looks financially. And then more regularly, we have little finance date nights, which makes it fun still.
And normalizes being able to talk about money, because when you don't talk about money in your relationship, then it gets swept under the rug and you can easily just continue spending what you don't have.
How do you make it fun? How is the date?
That's it. How do you make it fun to talk about money with your partner, especially if one's a little bit like won't bring it up?
That's a really good question. I guess when you're connecting your finances to goals and other things outside the numbers, there's so much freedom and so much fun. Like, I could, and maybe this is just part of who I am and what I've developed, like why I decided to be what I am, but I could talk about money for days, and I could literally just sit there and talk about it for days. And it's not just like, oh, so how much are we putting in here? How much should we spend? It's like, what do we want to do next month? What do we want to do next year? How do we want to build our life together? Like, those conversations to me are so big. There's no ceiling on what they can look like. And if you can support each other through your money blocks and your stories and your blueprint as well, then you get to know people on a deeper level.
So you said support each other.
Like, loving this. So
through your money blocks.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, one part is starting to talk about it. So, for example, opening up to your partner. If you had debt, say you're in a new relationship or fairly new, and you're getting to that point of starting to get serious, there's certain conversations that you're probably going to need to have at some point to understand if you're financially aligned. Because the number one reason that couples get divorced is financial reasons, and that doesn't necessarily mean as simple as one's earning and one's not and there's a clash. It could be your money story, your upbringing, how you feel about money, how you interact with money. I do a quiz, it's called the Profit Persona quiz, and it gives you 4 different personality types around money. And often I find if I get couples to do it, you can see what their financial relationship dynamic is based on the type of personality they are. So for example, one is a balancer, and they're very like measured, they love spreadsheets, they're happy to spend big bits of money, but only on things that are like high value. So they'll research a lot and think before they make decisions. They know the intricacies of their numbers. And then there's another type, which is does that sound like you? And then there's another type, which is the reveler, which is I'm the reveler. A big spender, likes to have fun, likes to live in the moment, doesn't really want to think about consequences of all the spending, hence me being in debt in the past. And I've had to learn, if I want to spend big, I need to earn more. So that's kind of something I learned. But me being with someone who is a balancer is a great mix, because between the two of us,
because you
a bit
complement
more.
each other then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so you can
sometimes you
end
won't
up
get
being I think it can
exactly.
be easy to be too stringent and then not enjoy your money at all, where
It's like,
the
what's
other
it for?
person in a relationship will go, come on, let's actually have some fun. Isn't that the reason why
Yeah.
we're earning this money?
The other two, one's the go-getter, so they're like super driven, ambitious, like they kind of know what they're doing, they don't really need any input, they are on their path and they're like, if this is my goal, I'm going straight towards it, I'm in. And sometimes that can mean they're quite siloed, because they won't
What does
involve
that
other
mean?
people in the
Sorry.
process. Solo, yeah, so they're just like, I'm on my path, I don't need any help, I don't need anyone else.
Solo. I thought you said silo. I was like, what does that mean?
And they can with that, it can mean it's quite challenging to let other people in, to delegate, to have time off. You might be a bit more workaholic. You're just like, there's my goal. Was
Sounds
that
like
familiar?
us.
Like, I don't know what you're saying.
I'm going, and you're either in it or not.
And then the last type is the smooth sailor, and they're like big thinkers, so they're like super creative and they have great ideas, but they sometimes get overwhelmed with the execution because they want things to just be easy. So if I'm talking to a smooth sailor, it's all about how can we set up systems for you so that that's there, and all you have to do is like plug the numbers in. You don't want to think about it.
Make
You
it
want to be
easy.
thinking, more big.
Do you end up being like a mix of a few of them,
For sure.
or you'll be more dominant to one?
Yeah, for sure. You can have a blend, but usually there's one dominant one. It was based on a lot of research on personality types, so it rings true for people when they take the quiz. But so the interesting thing, back to the dynamics with relationships, is watching how, because you could have 2 revelers who both love to have fun with their money, so they need to figure out how to make things fun. So back to your question, Rebecca, on how do you have fun with your money, that's why I've done what I've done. I've built spreadsheets that are pretty and colorful. I've built coaching that is all about like, who are you as a person? What do you want for your business? I'm running a retreat day in London at the end of this month, and it's all about like, there's going to be dance, there's going to be games, like it's about us as people wanting to experience and have fun as well. And that then opens that space to be able to enjoy thinking about money in a lighter way.
I love that. You've just made like you're making it like
it's not so serious
of life.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like you're putting sprinkles and like making it colorful and like making it just more enjoyable to discuss, as opposed to like a boring black and white spreadsheet and you're like, oh
Yeah.
I have to address this thing again.
Yeah.
I love that. Because I mean, Ruth and I, our personal journey, we never shared that we were investors for a really long time, because that was probably another money block that we had. And we were like, we don't want the judgment of people. Well, I mean, the media and all this, paint landlords in a nice light. And it's like, it's just such a surface opinion, and doesn't mean, it's just so multi-layered. And like potentially there is a discouragement, maybe propaganda, I don't know, for people to like not know or learn how to invest their money.
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
we read a lot of productivity books, and we have, I don't know, in the past when we were younger, had comments of, oh, you're just, crazy reading this kind of stuff, but we're generally interested in money and how it works, and just realize the value of how important it is, especially in like the women's space, talking from our own, where we've seen, family and friends, the parents, and one side, like the I guess men had more control of it, and that's why we're very passionate about women, especially being able to understand and knowing how to manage it, so that you're not completely solely reliant on the other partner to have to manage that on behalf of you, because you lose control.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing I think is really important. As why is it important? Yeah, you might not enjoy it at first. You might find it boring. You might find it intimidating. But when you have control and ownership of something and you know how to do it, just think about like subjects that you're really good at, how you lean in so much more when you're really good at something than when you're not, or when you're fearful of it, you like avoid at all costs. And if there's someone else who can hold that weight, you're like, yeah, you can take that. I don't know how to do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if you have a client who is at the stage where they, like your partner wants to invest in something, what is your sort of best like support for somebody who's at that stage when it comes to their own like money blocks or money issue, like whatever their perceptions of money are at the
Like,
time?
what would be your top tip for like how to just get started, like how to start just
How to approach
acknowledging?
it. This is what you need to do to like be okay with investing.
Yeah. So investing is an interesting one, I think, because there's often a knowledge gap or like a learning curve that has to occur before someone's willing to jump into it. So specifically when I'm talking about investing, because my step one would actually be starting with budgeting and the foundations. And it sounds really boring, but it's true. Like you need to
But
start
so
with the
important.
basics.
Yeah.
Basics.
Like don't skip.
Yeah.
Start where you need to start.
Yeah. Start where you need to start, and then understand how much you have and are willing to invest. So once you understand that number, then you need to understand what it is what investing even is to you. And I think so property is one aspect of investing. Investment as a topic, I was actually talking about it with 2 clients today. This is a theme. When you're investing in something, we already are investing in so many things, in the products that we buy, in the even the movies we watch. Like we surround ourselves, our time.
Investing our time.
Absolutely. And what investing means is also different to each person. And if you're not passionate about an area or interested in it, it's going to be really hard for you to engage in the learning needed to even get what you need to know. So as an example, I have an athlete as a client, and she used to think of a lot of the things she'd spend as expenses, and now she's reframed them to investments, because it's things like PT sessions or massages or nutrition. So those
That's
things.
true. That's
Yeah,
keep her functioning as an athlete.
absolutely. And then you go, okay, well, that's one aspect. But then the other is like, how can my money grow for me? So investment in property or in your business, they're 2 ways that you can make your money grow far greater than if you were just yourself trying to churn along and do something. How do you get interested in it? You need to understand it a bit, learn, maybe dabble a little in some smaller, less risky investment options to start with. Speak to people like yourselves, amazing people who have so much knowledge in this area, and just really connect with what it is that you actually want to learn. And then dabble, because the more you start to, this is not supposed to be a pun here, but the more you invest, the more invested you will feel. That comes after you've started to take an interest in something. So you'll put a bit in and you'll be like, oh, I want to know how that works now. And then you might go further and further and take your career from there. But also to say, I guess not everything is about love. Some people might not love some of the things that they do and that bring money. So there's also weighing up, what are you doing for the money? What are you doing it for the passion? And why are you saying yes to certain things? So you know when you're making those decisions, why it is you're saying yes.
Wow, you're so wise. I could just listen to you for ages. I just like agree with everything that you're saying. Like the big reason why we invest, like we're not like, absolutely are like love building houses. We love bricks, lame, but we care about providing homes for people that can't afford or want flexibility. And we care and we use property as a tool to be able to pursue passion businesses. So that's how we see it. But then the type of investment that we've decided to invest in, which is bricks and mortar, you're giving homes to people, and that's why it kind of hits it's well rounded for us for like ticking every box.
That's beautiful. I love that balance. Or flow.
Yeah, flow.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that now.
Yeah, flow. Everything's a flow, especially as a woman. Like so many flows. All of it. My gosh, thank you so much, Leah.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just throwing back to when we were at the retreat. Was it the
Girls and Property?
Yeah, it was
retreat. Girls and Property. It was the first one, and you were there.
handed out these papers, this like worksheet, and
I think I still have it.
This is so important. Yeah, I think it's also so simple. Like, it's not complicated, it's simple, but you just need to do these exercises as well, just to know where you stand, where your goals are, and that knowing that you guide people through breaking down what it is that they want or how to achieve.
And that it doesn't have to be a taboo. So if you can talk about this with your close circles, your service is very much needed, where people can feel they can talk about it. Sometimes you have to have a third person and be removed from
or
the
even
people,
potentially from your partner or your family, and they can't talk about it. So you're like, okay, let's talk to someone who is happy to talk about it.
Yeah. Like we keep saying, like, we really believe that the entrepreneur movement is going to grow and grow, and this is why your service is so important, because you're going to really be able to help these people navigate how to even get comfy with money from the very beginning, or even like halfway through their business.
So where's the best place for them to start? Is it with your quiz? Shall we?
Yeah, the quiz is great.
We'd love to be able to put it in the show notes so that people can.
Yeah, please do put the Profit Persona quiz in and share with me on Instagram, which is at Get Comfy with Money, what your profit persona type is. I'd like to hear which of the four including you two.
We'll click and then share it, definitely.
There's another little freebie I'm very happy to give away just for you, your audience, which is a pricing calculator. So going back to that idea of finding your pricing sweet spot, I have a pricing calculator that can help you figure out that number, which is super helpful as a starting point. I am actually running a pricing masterclass next week. I don't know when this is going out though, but if it works out timing wise, feel free to share that as well. I'll be going through the 5 pricing power moves to help you get out of that mindset that
I love the language. Your choice of words is just so much more empowering.
Yeah, it's more empowering. That's a good,
And as I said, at the end of November, I'm running a retreat. It's an in-person event for business owners only. It's super fun. It's going to be like no other business retreat you've ever been to. And the idea is to help you to get recharged and realigned with your mission, your pricing, and to just feel really good about what you're doing as a business owner. So any of those things you can find in my link in bio. So anything relevant.
We're going to pop all of them as well down in wherever the description
and
is.
We'll also be able to put that in our community, in the Honest community as well, so that you can find Leah and book onto her retreat.
Yeah, definitely look for support. If you got an inkling, you are struggling somewhere with your financial plans, knowing what your goals are, how to break it down, and know what it is, why you're doing what you're doing, and how you're going to get there. Just click on the links, and then that'll get you in touch with Leah, and she'll help you out. Thank you so much for being on the pod.
We could talk for ages.
Thanks so much for being on. Oh, and if you. Yeah, you said you're going to put it on the community.
Oh, yeah, I will put it in the community. But it's just, we just want to highlight that it's so important to be able to have open, honest discussions about money. The more that we have them, I think, it won't be such a taboo. And especially for women.
Yeah. So you've got access to Leah's links. And if you're in the property, if you've on your property journey and you want a community of support because you want a second opinion or you want to find accountability, then join our Honest Property group, and Leah's links will permanently be on there anyway for you to find them if you ever lose this podcast. Yeah.
Thank you.
Talk to you both. Thank you for having me. Bye.